Okay everyone, welcome back to the channel again. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the final round of the FIA Manufacturers Championship. It was round number 9 of season 3 in the exhibition season, and this was a combination that I've actually never really done in Group 3. I think the only time I've ever been on this circuit in reverse, it's the Blue Moon Infield I think it's the reverse variation. So I think I've done this once before on a previous video within an FIA season, and in general I've never been on it. So it was driving the Megane when we did that, when we were driving for Renault in the FIA season quite a long time ago. So this was kind of a learning curve again in Group 3, and picking up the track wasn't too hard because it's quite a simple track to learn. But I think this is one of them tracks, like the other variation is you start finding a lot of time on some of these corners. I really like this track the other way round, and I'm actually quite strong on it. I think the other way round, which is strange, is I got one of my best results ever in the FIA season. I think it was 2,800 points when we picked up a really good result for driving for Mercedes. So this opposite variation though plays very differently, very different in terms of the way it drives. It seems to affect the tyres a little bit more aggressively also, I've noticed. The other variation it's aggressive on the tyres, but not as aggressive as this way round, which is probably because of the speed you're going through certain corners, and it takes a lot of wear on that left hand side, especially on this way. But I was just going into this race, it was the final race. I just wanted to get it out of the way, and then I didn't expect a good result anyway. Starting P5, it was just about to see if we can improve in the race and maybe get into the top 3, try and get some sort of result. You can see burning fuel from the start, obviously. Just about managed to, you could just about do that with the Porsche, I think, and get away with it. So I was revving the car right from the start. We're going to just run on board with gameplay footage with the replay camera in the top right hand corner for the majority of the race. Unfortunately, I had run out of replay data, so for the final 2 laps, the top right hand corner is not going to show the replay footage because I wasn't aware when I went into the race. But I've sorted that out now, so we have got space on for replays now. So starting the race, starting from P5, you can see just behind us in P8 there, Super GT. If you haven't already checked out his YouTube, please make sure you go onto his channel and check out his videos as well. A very good YouTuber, so I'm pretty sure that 99% of the people who subscribe to me will already know about Super GT as well. Very good control pad player as well, so if you're on a control pad, it would be nice to pick up some tips from him as well. As we go into the first major braking zone, really, it's tight right hand corner, very tricky on power here. You can see I've got the Audi in front of me. One thing I wanted to do straight away was try and get past that Audi, because I know that Audi is going to hold me up in terms of tyre wear. At the start of the race, it'll be okay because it was a very fast car around this track, the Audi. However, its tyres are terrible, and when I say terrible, I mean they need to sort some of the cars out in this game. I mean, we've seen Tidgeny struggle with it. I think Tidgeny got pole, and then because of the tyres, just couldn't really battle for the win, even though he had the speed, he had the ability, and the car basically let him down. So it does show you that they do need to work on some of the tyre wear ratios on some of the cars. I think specifically the Lamborghini, the Audi, and the Ferrari probably. But you can see going down the start straight, picking up that slipstream, but the Audi's got quite a good top speed on it. It's quite a powerful car down the straight. You can see even with the slipstream, he's pulling away from me in front of me there, Tropic Thunder I think it is. But I knew now, after obviously the first lap, is his tyres will all start really running heavy on the tyre wears. We run a little bit wide there as someone else does the exact same thing, and I just about managed to bring it back onto the track and into the braking zone in time. But that loses me a little bit of time and puts me under pressure from P6 now, and a slight gap developed there to the leaders. But at this stage you could see that the pace was there to be battling the lead driver there, Matty, in P1. So we had fairly even pace in race pace. So I was looking to try and make my way up and get back past that Audi, make a move on him and just get the pace back down. You can see straight away managed to build the gap back up to P6, securing that gap a little bit so he can't make a move on me on the start straight. But now we're going to have the opportunity of, if we can get a good solid exit from this corner, I might be able to pick up a slipstream down this straight. You can see staying on the power and just trying not to clip the rear of his car because I didn't want to lose the speed. But again, now you're seeing that slipstream. Even though we're right in the slipstream there, he's pulling away. So the Audi's going to be a hard car to get past, but I needed to try and make a move somewhere as we go into the braking zone. There is an opportunity to do is if you do a slightly different line through this corner. You see on the brakes really aggressively, trying to cut that corner a little bit, on the power nice and early, and then looking over to the right hand side, seeing if there's a possible move on there. And I just decided to throw it up the inside there and go for it, and managed to make it just about. You can see it's still on the left of me a bit. There was a tiny bit of contact. I gave him some space, but I managed to make the move. That was quite a nice move. I enjoyed that one, and put myself up into P4. So now we've got to just try and get the slipstream of P3, because we're going to come under threat from that Audi behind us if we can't pick up a good enough slipstream from P3 for the start straight. Trying not to make too many errors through this section. This is the corners where I wasn't really up to speed on. I think if I would have practiced a little bit more, I could have got a lot better through it. You can see not carrying the speed through there. Eventually I did get a bit better at that corner, but it was a little bit too late. But this final corner, also a tricky corner. You see the tyre wear kicking in, and I think the aggressive driving at the start and driving in the slipstream as well, when you're right behind another car and you're sliding about a lot more when you're in the slipstream, tends to wear your tyres out a lot more. So going defensive on the right hand side, trying to squeeze him to that left hand side, but making sure that we give him enough space to take the corner, and that enables me to then just about hold the inside line as we're side by side. And then as I brake, the rear goes on me. You can see the rear just went massively, and then I understeered, hit the wall, and lose 2 positions. So unfortunately down to P6, and then obviously we've been off the track, the tyres are not feeling good, and tiniest little bit of contact, and it was a strange one that it was a bit like the Vettel thing when he gets hit at Monza and spins when you wouldn't think it would work. It was just a tiny bit of contact as I got on the power. It was no wrong from that driver. He had the right to go for that move. It was just one of racing incidents. He just tapped the side of my car, and as I was getting on the power, it just basically spun me 360. So now look at that left down rear tyre, totally dead. I had no grip left on it. The car is sliding around through these corners now. So I had to think of a different strategy, because the plan was a 2-stopper on lap 5, 10 and 15, because more than 5 laps was really pushing it on these soft tyres in this race. So I thought, I'm going to go in the pits now, because I've just lost so much time. You can see how far ahead everyone. Super GT about 3-4 seconds, maybe more up the grid there, probably further than that, maybe 5-6 seconds up. So what I decided to do was go in the pits now and try and get some of that time back straight away with an undercut. So what I'm doing now is an alternative strategy where I'm going to have to extend one of my stints. I wasn't 100% sure which one I'd do, whether I'd extend this one by 6 laps or if I'd extend the final stint. What I was thinking at the time was probably be advisable to extend the final stint, purely because, I've said it 100 times before, when your car is light on fuel, it uses the tyres a lot better. So the tyre wear is not as severe, and you can generally last a little bit longer on the tyres when you've got the lower fuel in. However, it was also going to be about traffic. Was there traffic in the track? Was it going to be advisable to do an extra stint on this first stint, if there was clear traffic? So I was just going to weigh it up as I went along. I knew this would be a little bit easier to get the 6 laps out if I could just stop the car from sliding around so much. But one thing I needed to do was make overtakes as and when I could. You can see straight away made that move. So all the way down though at the moment in P17, not where I wanted to be at this phase of the race, but what we've got now is a bit of an undercut taking effect. We've got fresh tyres while everyone would have been struggling on the tyres, so we're going to gain some of that time back on this lap now compared to other people. But you can still see just how far up ahead everyone is. Even with the undercut, you can see that we've come out, we must still be about 6-7 seconds behind Super GT and other drivers, still in P16. So this is going to have to be a bit of a fight back and a strategy change, obviously, to try and make this work. I did know that obviously the big thing about doing the undercut, like pitting the lap before everyone else, is you gain about 2-3 seconds, but then you're going to have struggling on tyre wear on your final stint if I do go for the 6 laps on that final stint on the soft tyres. It was going to definitely be a tricky thing to do, but I needed to drive kind of within myself. One thing that was quite handy was that I wasn't really up to speed on the track, so I wasn't pushing the tyres quite as hard and as aggressively as maybe if I was fully up to speed on the track. So maybe it was saving the tyres a little bit. That's a possibility now. Obviously on the first stint we totally destroyed them with that spin when we spun. A 360 spin like that where you're putting the power down and you spin round like that, and then I had to spin to get back in the right way. That totally destroys the tyres, because you've got times, I think it was like times 10 tyre wear maybe on this one with soft tyres, and that's like spinning the car 10 times round, and it just totally took all the life out of the tyres, and there was no point me trying to extend that stint to 5 laps because I would have lost probably about 5-6 seconds, maybe more on that one lap. So we're on the alternative strategy, running a little bit wide there, but just about got away. And we've got a car spinning there. The red Porsche 911 of GT Bocker, I think it was, has made an error on one of the corners, and now we're going to go for a move on the inside of the Nissan GTR. Managed to get up that position. Obviously tyres, I don't know if that was a one stopper there. He must be struggling with the tyres. Maybe he's doing the one stopper compared to the two stopper. There was so many different strategies going on in these races. It was hard to know who was doing what and when, what cars were struggling with tyres. It was really an interesting race, and as you've seen then, I was also having wheel issues. The wheel did its famous thing where it decided to pause and then change the view because my steering rim was coming a little bit loose. Obviously I have fixed that recently with the screw going into the a new screw. However, I think every week or so I need to just make sure I redo it just to make sure it's in firmly, because it started coming loose in this race and it paused the menu for me. So I lost a little bit, not a massive amount, it was about maybe half a second or so maybe there. It wasn't anything major, but it was a bit distracting to know that that was doing that, because I was worried if it was going to change the view at another point. But we're now up to P10 and trying to get our way through this field and get. I just wanted to try and get in the top 6 places or so from after that spin. If I can finish in the top 6 or so places, I think I've done a really good job, because you can see now we caught Super GT back up slightly now. We're on lap 8. You can see he's up there battling with some other cars, and he was behind us before that spin and he got quite a long way in the distance, but you can see we've managed to bring that gap quite a lot in with that undercut, and obviously putting in some okay laps with traffic and getting past traffic fairly easily so far on these last few laps. But what was the point now was I going to change? Was I going to pit on lap 10 or pit on lap 9? Extend this stint. Looking at the traffic ahead, I was thinking it's probably going to be advisable for me now to just keep this stint on a 9, pit on the end of lap 9, a 5-lap stint, because they're fighting and battling in front of me. If I pit on lap 9 at the end of this lap, I might be able to undercut some of these cars in front of me. So that's the thought process that was going on in my head at this point, as I had a massive moment of oversteer mid-corner and actually collided with the wall, which actually saved me a bit. It stopped me running wide, so I got away with that, as we've got 2 cars running wide there, as I nearly run wide on the braking as well when the tyres are really struggling again now. So this was a little bit of a worry for me that we're coming to the end of 5 laps on these tyres and the tyres are starting to really struggle. You can see that as we're putting the power down, the rear's losing control. We're up to P6 though, but we've got the one stoppers that are going to get back past us. It's all going to be very tricky what's going on. It's hard to work out where you actually are in these races, but you can see Super GT having a good battle there with P5, and they're battling. This is good for me though, because if they're battling on their lap 10, that's going to help me out, and the more fighting they do, the better for me. So I decided, why they're fighting like that, I'm going to pit now. And I thought, looking at the gap, they're about 2 to 3 seconds ahead. If I can put a solid lap in on my out lap without much traffic and getting through any traffic that is there, without much effort, I might be able to get side by side with Super GT as we're coming out the pits. That was the aim. I thought it was looking like it was going to be side by side. So this lap has got to be really important. But now what we didn't want to see in front of me was all that traffic. I was like, no, please. I really did. I thought, when I saw him in the mirror, I thought I might get out ahead of him and I'd have a nice clear lap, but this isn't what I wanted in front of me. But I'm going to have to try and get past them as soon as possible. So driving fairly aggressive. Look how much they are starting to struggle. You can see it on their tyre. They've not got the grip through the corners. Nothing like the fresh softs on my car. So it's just going to be a case of getting past as soon as possible, as I'm trying to pick up that slipstream. But they're getting on the power reasonably well. I actually run a little bit wide there where I'm starting to get a bit impatient. I wanted to get past. Where will I be able to go for a move? It's going to be really hard at this phase of the track to make any sort of overtake, but I'm going to try my best to get through as quickly as possible. Having a little look on the inside here now. Can I get a better exit there and just dive up the inside somewhere? I see that P10 struggling. I saw the gap open up and I thought I'm just going to go for that gap. Took that car, and now I've just got to pick up the slipstream down the straight and hope that I've done enough to get close to the cars that were in front of me as they pitting on this lap. So they're pitting now, they're coming out the pits, so we can have a little look out. On the right hand side there is Super GT, as we just about managed to overtake him. That was a big surprise for me. I think he actually had a little bit of a slight off when I watched this video. He had a little slight off into this corner where he was battling away and he clipped the wall there and lost about a second, probably, I think it was. Maybe, yeah, around about a second it probably was. and without that it probably would have been a case of going side by side through that right hand corner. So that really did cost Super GT. As P5 gets the braking on the brakes, he just clip that curb, which is, it can happen very easily. Obviously worn tyres, clip the curb, and he spun it now, and that puts me up to P5. Not really any chance of making much progress from here. We've only got 3 or 4 laps to go, and quite a big gap to the cars in front. You can see there's no real cars ahead of me. So now what I've got to do though is really look after these tyres, because Super GT and other drivers behind me are going to have them fresher tyres. They want that fresher tyres, but one thing I can normally do is extend the tyres quite a little bit longer than some other drivers, specifically pad drivers. If you're on a pad, it tends to use a little bit more tyre life than on a wheel. So what I've got to do now is try and keep it smooth, not spin up too much. I've got to drive reasonably aggressive though, because I've got to keep the lap times coming in now for these final few laps to maintain a top 5 position. And if I can get a top 5 position in this race, I would be really happy, to be honest, because I had that massive spin. I don't really know the track isn't one that I'm particularly strong on yet. It's one that I think I will be good at once I've practiced it and got used to it, because I like the layout, I like the flow of the track. It's just I wasn't really pushing the car as hard as I should be through certain corners. I think mainly the final sector was, the final few corners was where I was losing a lot of time. These corners up here now, I really wasn't being aggressive enough and getting on the power well enough. As you can see, I started to get a little bit better with these corners, running wider and then getting on the power nice and early there, but early in the race we wasn't really driving that as well. But now this is going to be a real test of tyre management and keeping speed. You can see we got Super GT behind us, around 1.8 seconds, 1.9 seconds behind me. He's got them fresher tyres. He did seem a very good pace he was showing at this track. He was managing to stay around that gap. You can see the gap's not really increasing to Super GT. The car in front, I was actually gaining on the car in front ever so slightly. So it does look like I would have had the potential to get into that battle for the top 3. I think the P1 was a little bit too far ahead. I don't know what strategy he was on, but it looked like the Beetle was having really good tyre wear around this track. It must have suited that car with terms of tyre wear. It didn't seem to have any struggles with tyre wear at all. But it looks like we would have been battling for P2 and 3 with Matty there, judging by the pace I'm showing now. I think 107 I'd done at this point, 107 flat, wasn't particularly amazing, but it was still up there with the fastest lap. It was only 3/10 off the fastest lap. You can see I've managed to increase that gap to Super GT now on these final few laps. We're coming up to the start of lap 14, just 1.92 seconds ahead. So we're basically holding the gap, which I was actually reasonably happy with, because we're a whole lap behind in terms of tyre wear. So he's obviously got 1 lap fresher tyre every time we go round. With the times 10 ratio, he's got like 10 laps fresher tyres on soft tyres. So it is quite a big difference when you're running the soft tyres. If it would have been medium tyres or something like that, with times 10, it wouldn't have been so bad. But because we're running the soft tyres and obviously times 10 tyre wear, it does take such an effect. Each lap that you do around this track really does take a lot of life out of these tyres. You can see that rear left is also, it's mainly the left hand side. The left hand tyres take all the wear at this track. You see Super GT driving really well behind us, keeping us under pressure and putting us, making sure that I can't afford to make a single mistake. If I make any sort of error at this point of the race, he's going to be able to get past us and take that top 5 position. One thing I didn't want to do was obviously make the mistake and drop the DR. I do like to try and keep my driver rating up at 75k, and I know that if I finish in the top 5, I shouldn't lose any driver rating, because although if it was a daily race I probably would lose driver rating, but in an FIA race you tend to keep it if you finish in the top 5, because the lobbies are quite high rated drivers. As we go over the start finishing line, and we've actually increased on that lap to 2.2 seconds, and not a bad lap. The tyres are wearing quite badly now. This is the unknown. I hadn't any experience of driving this car with soft tyres on for 6 laps, because I didn't expect to have to do it. But we just got to try and keep it smooth, keep it on the track. You can see the car sliding through that corner. The rear left hand tyre was really starting to struggle at this point, so you can see running wide there where I was so hesitant to put the power on, because normally you put a bit of acceleration in to rotate the car, but I was so scared to do that with the tyres in the condition they was. So again, being very careful on the throttle. You can see running a little bit wide there, but actually doing a really good job at getting the power down and actually getting out of that corner with reasonably good acceleration without spinning it. Now we come through to this left-hand corner. Wasn't a massive issue because we've got loads of grip on the right-hand side, but then it's these right-hand corners when you're putting the power down where the rear is going to be very loose. You can see having a big moment on that corner there, nearly losing the rear. Very nervous through this corner as well, because this corner was very tricky when the tyres started to go, being gentle on the throttle and just making sure that we don't spin, and managing to go to the finish with them tyres and making them last. So I was reasonably happy with that. A little handbrake turn at the end. I was quite happy with actually getting to 5th from where I was. It wasn't a brilliant result, obviously P5, but sometimes fighting your way back is just as enjoyable as getting a win, and I actually felt quite happy with that, with the fact that I didn't really know the track. I wasn't really looking forward to it. I didn't really seem to have the speed in practice in the time trial, so to get a P5 from the position where we were down into P17, I think it was, is actually quite an achievement, and I was reasonably happy with that. And then Super GT did a really good job there as well, picking up P6 and some very big points for him also. So 1,820 points, not particularly great. It won't be a scoring round for me because it'll be a dropped round, but still reasonably happy with that. And an enjoyable race. I do like that track, I just need to learn it a little bit more. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. We will be back with more GT Sport content and streams and stuff throughout the week, so make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed, and make sure you click that notification button so you don't miss any future videos. And also give that video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. I do appreciate everyone that gives these videos a thumbs up, and leave any comments in the comment section and I'll try and read them all. I might not be able to reply to them all, but I do normally read pretty much every single comment. Anyway, thanks again, and I'll see you all soon.